Do you have fully vacant units on your property that you have mothballed until next semester? If you do, I bet you've thought to yourself, we should list those on Airbnb for game day weekends or for parents visiting their kids. Maybe you're in a college town like Austin or Raleigh or Tallahassee, and your city has large festivals and not enough hotel rooms. You know you could lease those units on a nightly or a weekly basis. Providing short-term rentals on platforms like Airbnb can provide a great source of ancillary income. But it takes it takes a lot of organization. There's the additional setup of providing linens and coffee makers and all the little things that a short-term tenant will expect. Then there's the regulatory and tax issues that could require additional work. More importantly, there's the time and labor to market on all the multiple platforms, handle the reservations and cancellations, the cleaning, and then there's the bookkeeping. All of this turns into a big distraction from the main job at hand, which is operating and leasing your property. That's where Vector Travel comes in. These guys know the short-term rental industry and they know how to relieve all of those burdens from the property manager. And best of all, they've become experts in how to do that with student properties. They understand the complexity of mixing travelers with college students. They know it so well, they can quickly identify if a student property is not going to be a good fit for their program. So if you have vacant units, reach out to Vector Travel and have them do a free, no obligation assessment to determine if enrolling your vacant units in their program will be beneficial. Go to vectorstays.com/SHI. Fill out a quick form to receive more information. You will also get the first month's service fee waived by going to that specific landing page. Again, that's vectorstays.com/SHI. Welcome to the Student Housing Insight Podcast, where we are putting you in touch with the people who bring life to student housing. I'm your host, Wesley Dees. Well, folks, it is that time of the year again. What am I talking about? Other than the massive amount of pollen that's fallen on the ground in the Southeast? Nope, not that. I'm trying my best to ignore that. No, I'm talking about the Interface Student Housing Conference in Austin, Texas. This is the largest student housing conference on the globe. It's put on by our friends over at France Media, who also publish Student Housing Business Magazine. So as always, this time of year, we are going to catch up with Rich Kelley to get a preview of what's on tap for this year's conference. This year's conference is the 14th annual one. But before I do that, I've got some important news to pass along. Drum roll, please. We have launched our very own mobile app. Yes, we have. It's called SHI Connect. You could go to your app store today, search in your Google Play Store, just search for SHI Connect and download it right to your phone. So, why did we launch an app? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and I'll share more about that in future episodes. In fact, we've got a YouTube video that we're putting together between Greta and I on how to navigate the app. And by the way, Greta gets all the credit for this app. This is something that I went to her and said, hey, I want to do this. This is why. And she immediately bought into it and was like, yeah, this is something the industry needs. And she's done all the work to get it to this point. And I wish she was here for me to tell her thank you, as I have told her over and over again, but just want you guys to know that she's been, the major person putting that together. So why did we launch an app? The main reason is this. The student housing industry, we face a lot of challenges in this industry, and challenges are conquered by people who can communicate as to what the problems are and express their thoughts and ideas on how to overcome those problems and those challenges. As an industry, we don't really have a platform to discuss these challenges in real time. I mean, we've got conferences, we've got, company get-togethers, company meetings, all that kind of stuff. But in real time, there's just not a way that we can do that as an industry. And especially in a way that we are accustomed to communicating, which is on our devices, on our mobile devices. When the pandemic began back in March of 2020, and the students were told by their universities to go home, this industry was just stricken with panic on, how would we continue to lease apartments? How would we collect rent? Would they have a reason to collect or to pay rent, right? And I think most importantly, how are we going to take care of our employees, especially our site employees, but also our employees that are constantly traveling? How are we going to do that? It was crazy. And other than picking up a phone and calling someone or asking people to meet on a Zoom call, we had no central place we could really communicate and talk about the problems we were facing. Some of us created social media groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, but that doesn't always reach everybody in real time. And let's face it, those platforms, especially Facebook, is becoming toxic and crazy more and more each day. I can't even type the word slap and Will Smith in the same sentence without being censored. So that's why we created SHI Connect. We face problems every day in this industry, and now we've got a resource to help ourselves solve those problems collectively. So again, more details on the app will come out later, but go download it today and start following people, start making posts. I'm telling you, you're going to be amazed with what we've been able to put together. All right, let's get to that interview with Rich Kelley and talk about what we can expect at Interface this year. And make sure you join us in the outro because I've got a couple of announcements to make there as well. Rich Kelley, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Wes. Good to be here with you.
Well, hey, I want to talk to you about Interface. This has become kind of an annual thing for us over the past 3 or 4 years now of getting together and talk about what's on tap and give everybody a preview of what's happening with Interface student housing. But before we get into that, 2021 was a good comeback year for you guys, especially on the conferencing side, because we're finally able to do live events again. If you could just give everybody a rundown of how 2021 went for you guys and what all you guys have been doing as far as student housing is concerned.
Well, it was certainly an interesting year, as you said. A bounce back year for the industry, and we're always a reflection of the industry. So, I would say definitely 21 was a better year than 2020. Although 2020, we held our own as well, as did the industry. A couple things we noticed were in both 2020 and 2021 as it continued to still be a struggle to get out in front of people. We had a lot more people doing sponsored e-blasts with us or hosting webinars because they wanted to still get their message out in front of the industry. And the same thing really with advertising, whether it be on in the magazine, on the newsletter, or on the website. So, people still need to be in front of people. And hopefully and fortunately, we were a conduit to help folks do that. On the conference side, we were very lucky that, we did Interface Student Housing last July. Our timing was fortunate in terms of where things were in terms of variants and such. We were also able to do two of our, what we call our exchange events, the SHB Development Exchange and the SHB Operations Exchange, which are much smaller, more intimate things, and those worked out well. And then we were able to do LeaseCon TurnCon in December, and that was a nice way to kind of end the year. So it was a busy year. It was certainly a year not without its issues and challenges, but just like the industry, I think we rose above it and are now poised to enjoy hopefully more, I don't want to say calm times given what's going on in the world, but at least somewhat more normal times in our day-to-day business here in 2022.
Yeah. So, let's talk about, transactions in the industry came back pretty hard. And I think that was, something that you guys covered extensively. Is there anything that kind of stood out to you as being just interesting or kind of maybe you see it from a standpoint of being tactful that you could see possibly impacting the future of student housing and just kind of what's going on? Is there anything that stood out to you at all?
Lots of things, actually. The big investment deals at the end of the year just showed, and I'm not saying anything new here, but it just showed how much interest there is in the space from institutional capital, be it pension funds, be it overseas capital, really anybody and everybody. And that's a good thing for the space. I think another interesting thing that will have a lot of interesting ramifications in the year to come, not in a bad way, but development starts are down for obvious reasons. The pandemic, construction costs, uncertainty, all that adds up to you're not going to see as much development coming out of the ground for the next couple of years. And that will, I think, be both beneficial to the folks that do get their projects out of the ground. And it will probably be beneficial to all the owners and operators out there because there won't be as much new product coming on. Therefore, hopefully, leasing demand is higher than ever, and rental rates can be healthy as well. And then, the other thing we've talked about in the magazine, and people talked about it in all realms, a lot of things changed in 2020. A lot of things obviously went virtual. They had to. So what stays, and then maybe what comes back from the older way of doing things. And we're already starting to see that, I think, a little bit in 2022. Some people have feelings like, hey, everything's going to stay virtual. That's the way all leasing should be. That's the way all of our operations and management should be. Other folks say, no, it's important to have that pizza party, and it's important to have someone at the leasing desk to give a personal tour. And not saying there's a right or wrong answer. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But that's what makes it, makes it worth getting out of bed every day and coming to work and talking to people, figuring all that out.
Yeah, I think what makes that so interesting in student housing is just the seasonality of it, because things like things like payroll, they're having to go up pretty significantly on things, and our rents are kind of baked for a year. So, it's unlike the conventional where you can start moving things on a monthly basis. You don't get that with student housing. You've got to wait sometimes 6-8 months, sometimes as far out as 12 months before that actually works out. And so, because of that, I think there's a lot of things that operators are having to look at, like, keeping virtual leasing around and maybe being able to, maybe that keeps you from having to hire, an extra leasing agent. At the same time, I will tell you, it's very hard to even find leasing agents. So, that's interesting. Well, hey, before we jump into the big conference with Interface, I want to talk about another virtual conference that you guys are doing from an international standpoint. I got something earlier this week, that announcement from you guys that I was, I love seeing it because I've done some work in Canada and love the operators that are up there. But you've got the Canada webinar coming up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Some good friends at Varsity Communities and also company Cloud Wi-Fi are sponsoring that webinar and kind of brought the idea to us, and we jumped all over it because we've covered Canada in the magazine from time to time, but we've had our eye on it for a long time of wanting to do an event up there, or how do we do a little bit more on Canadian student housing, because it's an interesting market. Some similarities to the U.S., but obviously some differences as well. And so I think what that webinar will do is kind of get everybody caught up on what's going on with our friendly neighbors to the north in terms of both on campus and off campus. And who knows, it might open some people's eyes to some opportunities as well. So, I know I read something this week that Canada is picking up a higher share of international students than they ever have, for probably some obvious reasons. So that certainly bodes well for their market. So an opportunity to learn a lot about what's going on up there from an investment standpoint, development standpoint, leasing management operations on April 7th. Great.
Yeah, no, with, especially with Australia still kind of being in lockdown, and also their, semesters are kind of opposite from us. And so that creates a timing thing. A lot of students, both from Asia countries as well as India, that would be going typically to Australia, or a good majority of them would be going to Australia, are now having to look at, now their options are Europe, the US, and Canada. And I think all of us are going to be in a little bit better situation as far as international students, assuming that, they can get everything in place to travel before, Lord forbid, another variant comes out that slows everything down. But I think, I think both Canada and US are going to see a big bounce back this year if everything continues to stay somewhat mellow with COVID. So that's fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to it. That's April 7th. And again, they can go to studenthousingbusiness.com to get more information on that.
Yeah, we have ads running on the website and in the newsletter, and we're sending out some promotional announcements before that. So keep your eyes open. But yeah, you should be able to find access to it pretty easily.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know the Connor and the guys over at Varsity, and looking forward to that. So, all right. Let's now chat about the biggest student housing conference on the globe, since we're talking about international student housing, because this is, I follow all the conferences and there's some pretty cool ones that have been happening in Europe over the past few years, but by far this one is still the biggest. And certainly before COVID, it was bringing in a lot of folks from off our shores to come in and learn about the industry and network with both operators as well as investment groups here in the U.S. But again, we're meeting in Austin this year, not July, which is great. But it's not in April. But what's that?
It would be at least 5 degrees cooler.
Yeah. July was great. That week was actually, it worked out for a lot of good reasons. But yeah, being in Austin in July is not as nice as it has been in April. But we're not doing April this year. We're actually doing May, which I think there's a lot of deals that are put together at this conference every year. And, when we're dealing with maybe the first 2 weeks of April, a lot of ownership groups are, trying to gauge where things are going with pre-leasing. And I remember hearing so many times, hey, if we know where you're going to be the next 2 to 3 weeks, this could be a different deal. Or owners that say, I'm really wanting to wait and see what happens before we even decide to put this thing on the market. And so honestly, May 4th through 6th, that gets us, pretty much close to the end of the semester for most universities. So I don't know that May is a bad thing. Is that something were you guys being strategic about that, or was that something that the JW that was the only time they had available?
I wish we could say we were that smart, Wes, and that's but we were at the mercy of our friends at the JW Marriott. Next year, I think we're back in April. I don't disagree with you. And frankly, as the person putting on the event, the more time I can have, the better. So maybe we'll look to that for future years. But yeah, I think in the next couple of years, we're back more in the April time frame. But it's a point well taken, and it does bear consideration for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys usually do a southeast multifamily kind of towards the end of May as well. So I'm sure having a bunch of conferences in May probably is probably going to make everybody pull their hair out this year.
Yeah, it's tough. And then you also have you're trying to balance things like Easter and people school are on break before or after. You have the Jewish holidays around that time as well. So there's no shortage of things to try to plan around. That's for sure.
Gotcha. Well, give us a rundown of what attendees can expect this year at the conference, and I'll go ahead and kind of let everybody know there's not a golf tournament on the schedule this year, but if you want to play, we can all get there a day early and try to put something together. But that is not on the official agenda this year.
Yeah, as a golfer myself, it pains me to not do the golf outing, but it just we didn't do it last year for just kind of some COVID-y reasons, and everybody seemed to be okay with it. And golfers, people who play golf will find a way to play golf, so I don't worry about that. And it also is a big logistical issue for us. Well, we're also trying to get the first day of the conference up and running. So what we did last year was we had our Women of Student Housing panel kick things off on that Wednesday, and we're going to do that again. And that was it was a great discussion, and B, it just was a lot of positive energy to get the event started. So we're look forward to replicating that, maybe introduce another thing on Wednesday as well. And then of course we roll into the roundtables from 3:30 to 5, and then the big opening reception. In terms of what to look for, I think a lot of optimism. The industry, as we've chronicled and everybody knows, has emerged, knock on wood, pretty darn well through a very challenging 18 months to 24 months. And certainly with some wrinkles here and there, everything's moving along pretty well I think for most people from an investment standpoint, development, leasing, management, operations, new technologies emerging, certainly supply chain issues. Those are a challenge, but challenges are also a good thing to talk about at a conference. So I think we're going to have some very interesting discussions. We're going to have a few new wrinkles as we like to do every year. We have the Innovator Awards. We had a record number of entries this year, which was fantastic to see. We have an amazing Lifetime Achievement Award winner in Mike Moran. So it's going to be a great few days.
Yeah. I'm excited about that. Is this the second Lifetime Achievement Award or the third?
This is our second. The first would have been in 2020, but that was pushed back to last year with Tom Tribbiana. And,
right.
I said at the time, when you look up student housing in the dictionary, you'd see Tom's picture. Well, I think, right beside his picture would be Mike's.
Yeah.
Capstone was one of the earliest major players in this space. And there are a lot of things I admire and love about Mike Moran, but one of them is that, he was in all businesses. He's in off campus, on campus, investment, management and operations, both on and off campus. So there's truly no segment of the industry that Capstone did not touch and still touches to this day. And Mike was the person that, made it all happen and brought it all together. In a quick anecdote about Mike, I remember when we first started student housing business, we did a conference in New York City. It was our first or second year is kind of the theme of, bringing institutional capital to focus on student housing or whatever. And we weren't sure how it was going to go. But the day I saw that Mike Moran registered, and then I saw him with us there in New York City, I was like, okay, wow, that makes me feel a little bit of confidence that this is good. This is all right. Yeah. This is not a dumb idea. Because if a guy like Mike's willing to come up to New York City and be there with us, that made me feel good. So he's always been a great friend of the magazine. Certainly, obviously, a huge influence and presence within the space, and couldn't be happier to honor him on May 5th.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that. I also love what they've, Capstone has done with, supporting veterans, specifically in Alabama. They built a project that helps veterans, and I can't remember if it's while they're at a hospital or exactly what the requirements were, but just a fantastic group of folks, and looking forward to hearing from Mike and him getting his award, because he is someone who certainly does deserve that for sure. Any other panel topics or anything like that stick out to you that you're excited about?
We are going to our main thrusts, of course, are always things like investment, development, finance, leasing, management, operations, technology. But yeah, a couple new wrinkles. We're going to have a panel of maybe things to think about in the future. Are students going to be paying their rent someday in crypto? Are we going to is NIL going to find its way more into the student housing space? There's actually a discussion you're going to be on that's going to have some interesting, I think, some research findings and survey findings that are going to be out there. So yeah, I think there's something for everybody, and the panel sessions are going to be real good.
Well, great. So, last night I was checking the event over at interfacestudenthousing.com, which, by the way, thank you so much for getting that URL, because I was always having to go to shb.com or studenthousingbusiness.com or to Interface and, find the link and all that. Now I can just go to interfacestudenthousing.com. I can get everything that I need. But I saw where the room block at the JW is sold out. It doesn't mean that there are not rooms, just means that they're likely at a higher rate. So if you're listening to this and you're going, make sure you book your room if you haven't already. And if they do sell out, I know the website's got some other hotels that are in walking distance. Is there? Have you guys worked out any kind of additional hotel block with them, or is that kind of a free for all?
It's the hotel. It's always a weird situation. This year, there's a big group in ahead of us earlier in that week, so they kind of clogged up some of the rooms earlier in the week, which made it hard. Some people could get a room late at our event later in the week, but not the first night. So it's always a sticky situation. I would just tell you that if you really want to be at the JW, to keep checking even within our block, because people cancel. Sometimes a company will lock down 12 rooms, but only 9 people wind up coming. So 3 of those rooms become available for each night. Otherwise, yeah, there are a lot of hotels nearby. There's a Hyatt Place like literally across the street. That's one of the benefits of being in downtown Austin. There are a lot of hotels nearby. Don't actually have any formal blocks, but I think the hotel rates at the other places are pretty reasonable. So even if you don't wind up at the JW, you can literally be 100 yards away, spend all your time there.
Yeah, yeah, I've had to do that before, and it's especially at the Hyatt. It's not bad at all. I know a lot of companies that come in to town for this, or even a lot of the ones that are local in Austin, end up getting some additional private meeting space in order to hold meetings and breakout meetings and that kind of thing. Is the JW able to help with that this year, or should they look at other hotels to do that?
We have about 20 companies that have wound up kind of doing the private meeting rooms that we help them facilitate. And I think the hotel probably still has other rooms or cabanas by the pool. It's a good question. I don't know the exact answer. If you're interested, you could contact us and we'll put you in contact with the person at the JW, or you could certainly just call the JW yourselves. But yeah, no, a lot of companies, I think, find a lot of value in that. A lot of the meeting rooms are on the fourth floor and the third floor, which are the two floors we're going to be on with our event. Some people may remember last year. Well, actually, in prior years, we were always just on the fourth floor. Last year, because the hotel had nobody else in the hotel, we were able to utilize both floors, and it helped certainly from a social distancing standpoint and a COVID standpoint and all that. And fortunately, this year, we're actually going to be able to do that again. So we're going to have two of our session rooms down on the third floor, a little bit of a networking lounge down on the third floor. And frankly, there's a lot of travel between the third and fourth floors anyway, because that's where a lot of those private meeting rooms are. So we'll be able to be, I don't want to say overly spread out, but at least I think comfortably spread out on the third and fourth floors this year. And yeah, if people if you still want to do one of those meeting rooms, I would say either contact us or just contact the JW directly.
Gotcha. Hey, I was actually this morning had a call with kind of a new group that is actually they were on Shark Tank this past week. It's called Oopbox. If anybody wants to check them out, I know they're in the process of doing something with CA Ventures, but I was talking with one of their principals this morning, and just kind of catching up and seeing how things went since they were on Shark Tank last week, and they said business is good. And they wanted to talk about doing some other student housing conferences. And I said, well, this one's coming up, but I honestly don't know if there's any more space in the exhibit hall. But I told them I would be speaking with you today. So I'll just go ahead and ask that question. Is there any more room in the exhibit hall if someone wants to exhibit?
There is no more room in the exhibit hall. For better or for worse, we're sold out. But I just talked about the fact that we're going to have two session rooms on the third floor. So we are doing what we did last year. We're going to have some tabletop spaces down on the third floor. So it will give folks that really still want to have a presence, but maybe just didn't get to us in time for the main exhibit floor. It'll give folks like that an opportunity to have some physical presence and be able to have, a place to show a little bit what you do or have your materials out. So we do have that. We do have that option. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, if you're one of those vendors out there that are looking to see if you can get in, I would definitely reach out to Rich on that, because this is it's a great conference to meet suppliers. Again, I'm excited about not only just attending, but also participating this year, and looking forward to seeing everybody again. Thanks so much for what you guys are doing. I know this is now the 14th year, and each year seems to, even through COVID, it seems to have gotten a little bit bigger, and, excited to see everybody, but also just, kind of see how things are evolving with the event itself. Speaking of events and things that have evolved, obviously LeaseCon, TurnCon, evolved a little bit this year by adding TurnCon to it. For those in our audience who, for whatever reason didn't get to go this past year, if they're looking to go this year, because I am hearing from a lot of our audience members that they want to make sure that they've got that on their calendar for this coming year. Any commitments yet from Interface if they're going to try to put it on the calendar this year?
Well, we certainly like to, Wes. It was fun to introduce. It was fun to bring the event back last year after a hiatus in 2020 and add the TurnCon element, which I think I'd like to thank you for helping maybe introduce us and shed some light on that for us.
I have to thank the guys at Easy Turn, because it was actually at it was at Interface that Chase Mendenfield said, you know what, we should really do a turn con. So yeah, I'll bring that up to Rich.
I think you brought it up when we rode the escalator from the third to the fourth floor, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, probably so. Probably so.
See what I was talking about? That people moving between the third and fourth floor, you and I were, and good things came out of it. It's a labor of love. It's a fun event. The hardest challenge, frankly, is that so many of the owner operators have their own internal, whether you call it a year end or just their annual meetings. And so many of the folks that would attend LeaseCon, TurnCon from the vendor service provider side, they all feel certainly the need to be at those big company events. So it really becomes a challenge logistically to find the right time. And then we also have some other just kind of logistical challenges of other things we're doing at France Media. But we are on it, and we're trying to figure it out. And, a couple folks that are hopefully watching this maybe getting some calls from us to try to figure out some calendar dates. But anyway, we're on it. We'd like to do it, and hopefully we'll be back some point in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings up a good point. We're in the middle of launching our new app, SHI Connect. It'll be available to everybody on April 1st, but we've got the ability to survey folks. And maybe that's something that we should do once that's up and going. Let's survey all the folks that are on SHI Connect and find out what makes the best date for everybody. So cool.
So that's not an April Fool's joke, Wes. You're really going to have.
Yeah, I know. I told everybody when we said April 1st, first thing that came, or as they were suggesting April 1st, I was like, yeah, but everybody's going to think it's April Fool's. So, but it is out. It's in fact, I think we've got about 30 members that are under. There are beta members right now, and we're having a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to folks jumping on that and being able to use that to network and just, be able to find ways to do things better. So yeah, everybody should check that out. Rich, thanks so much again, and look forward to seeing you in May. And I'm sure we'll be talking, between now and then, but if folks want to get more information, obviously they can go to interfacestudenthousing.com. Any other final words of wisdom or advice for those looking to attend?
No, I just think that, if you're in the student housing space, you really should be there May 4th to 6th. And everyone you'll want to meet and talk to is going to be there. And it's a fun event. We try not to take ourselves too seriously, and we want to make it informative, but we also want to have everyone have a great experience with their networking, and it's a fun time of year to be in Austin. So thank you, Wes, for the opportunity to talk to everybody today, for the continued great work you do with SHI. You are truly a valuable asset to this industry. So thanks for what you do. Thanks for giving me the chance to chat a little bit. And can't wait to see you and everybody else in Austin, May 4th through the 6th.
Fantastic. We'll see you then.
All right. Thanks, Wes.
Again, big thanks to Rich for giving us his time. I love doing this episode each year, and I think we're now 4th or 5th year of doing that. And it's always great to catch up with him and see what's on tap and see how this conference is growing and how it's also evolving. So, a couple of announcements. Be on the lookout for our next episode in our Profiles in Student Housing series. As Rich mentioned, Mike Moran is being honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award at Interface this year. Well, I got to sit down with Mike this week to interview him, and I can't wait for you guys to hear that. He's one of the pioneers in our industry and has left an incredible legacy. So stay tuned for that. Again, that's on the next episode of Student Housing Insight. The second announcement I wanted to make is that we have launched Shop Talk. So what is Shop Talk? So if you remember from some previous episodes we've talked about, there's this monthly web meeting that Miles Worth and Chris Richards launched among the executives within the industry at the start of the pandemic to try and figure out, how best, as operators to respond and proceed with things. Miles asked me a few months ago to help him with some content As that conversation grew, we decided to launch something just completely new and something that's more inclusive of the entire industry. So we launched Shop Talk, and it's all about what is impacting student housing operations today. So what can you expect on Shop Talk? Well, we always give a pre-leasing overview of what's happening over the past, the previous month as far as regionally and nationally with pre-leasing. We also deep dive into a specific market. For April, we did Gainesville, Florida. So if you're in that market and you missed that Shop Talk, you definitely want to make sure that you go and listen to that. And you can do that by going to the website. Go to shoptalk.info. Again, that's shoptalk.info. And there you can register to receive updates on future meetings. You can also link there to our previous recordings. So go check that out. Again, it's shoptalk.info. Make sure you register. This is open to anybody in the industry to attend. And it's not just executives anymore, site level. I would say really property manager all the way to CEO is, that's who needs to tune into this each month. We're typically going to do it the second Tuesday of each month. We're doing things a little bit different in May since everybody's involved with Interface at the beginning of May. So the next one will be on May 17th. So make sure that you mark your calendars for that. And again, if you go and register, you'll actually get a calendar invite to it. So, all right, guys, that's it for this week. We'll see you on the next episode.